the pressure who no book. If you don't have no education, people treat you like a book.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another tutorial in this COVID-19 pandemic season. Parents, on the behalf of all teachers, thank you very much for your continued support at home. Thank you very much. In today's lesson, we're going to be looking at comparing fractions. And we're going to be comparing fractions, comparing unit fractions in ascending order and comparing non-unit fraction in ascending order. What are unit fractions? Unit fractions are fractions that have a numerator of 1. Here are 4 examples of unit fractions: 1 out of 2, 1 out of 6, 1 out of 3, 1 out of 12. All of those are unit fractions. So any fraction that is written with a numerator or a top number of 1 is called a unit fraction. Here's a question you could be asked about a unit fraction. You could be asked to put these fractions in order of size, smallest first. So smallest to largest. Which would be the smallest? What would be the order that they would come from smallest to largest? Could you pause this video and have a go at it and then come back to the answer? Let's have a go at the answer. Let's have a look at the answer. But before we have a look at the answer, let's listen to a story. Now, it's Easter. And if you're from the Jamaican culture, at this time during Easter, we eat a lot of bun and cheese. Now imagine that my grandmother bought some buns. She knew that the rest of the family was coming over. So she decided to cut up 4 buns. She decided to cut 1 in 2 pieces, 1 in 6 pieces, 1 in 3 pieces, and 1 in 12 pieces. Now, bear in mind that all of these buns are the same size. One of them is cut into 2, 1 is cut into 6 slices, 1 is cut into 3 slices, and 1 is cut into 12 slices. My grandma knows that I love bun. So she says to me, go to the kitchen and get a piece of bun. Which bun do you think I will take a slice off? Remembering that I really love bun. Do you think I'm going to take a slice of the one that is cut into 2 pieces, the one that's cut into 6 pieces, the one that's cut into 3 pieces, or the one that's cut into 12 pieces? In other words, am I going to take a half? Am I going to take 1/6? Am I going to take 1/3? Or am I going to take 1/12? Of course, I'm going to take the one that is cut into 2 pieces because that's a bigger slice. Because that one cake is only cut into 2 pieces. So the one I would take a piece of would be the 1 out of 2. So a half in this case is going to be the biggest one. So a half would be the biggest one. Now, if I was going to put these in order of size, smallest to largest, which one would be the smallest piece? So imagine my cousin now comes up and she's like, Grandma, I don't want these buns because they have raisins in it. And she hates raisins. But my grandmother said to her, you need to take a piece of the bun. To please my grandma, which bun do you think she's going to take a piece of? Do you think she's going to take a piece of the one that's cut into 2, where 1 piece is a half? One that's cut into 6, where 1 piece is 1/6? Where one that's cut into 1/3, where 1 piece is 1/3, or one that's cut into 12, where 1 piece is 1/12. Of course, she doesn't want to eat the bun. She's only pleasing my grandma. So what she will do, she'll take a piece of the one that is cut into 12. So the smallest piece that we'll have there is 1 out of 12. Let's look at this fraction whole. A while ago, we had a half. So imagine this was the bun, and I've cut that into 2 pieces. So here, I could take this 1 piece, which is a half, but also there's another cake that we had cut into 3 pieces. So here, if I take 1 piece out, that's 1/3. There was another cake that we've cut into 6 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I've cut that into 6 pieces, and 1 piece of that is called 1/6. Then the next one, I've cut it into 12 pieces. So if I've cut it into 12 pieces, 1 piece of that is called 1/12. Now let's notice here. If you notice, the biggest one was a half, then the other one was 1/3, then the next one in line was 1/6, and the next one in line was 1/12. So in a unit fraction, the smaller the denominator, the bigger the fraction. The smaller the denominator, the bigger the fraction. So the next thing we're going to be looking at is comparing fractions when they are not unit fractions. So we're going to be comparing fractions when they're not unit fractions. Here we're given 3 fractions which are not unit fractions, and we're told to put these in order, smallest to largest. 3/4, 2/3, and 5/6. Here we're posed with a problem. 3/4, 2/3, and 5/6 doesn't have anything that is in common that we can see just by looking at it. It has things in common, but not just by looking at it. Unlike the unit fractions where we know they were all unit fractions. Here we have to do different things. Here we have, this one is out of 4, this is out of 3, and this is out of 6. And we're asked to put them in order, smallest to largest. We're asked to compare them, putting them in order, smallest to largest. We've got to find something in common so we can use it to compare them. Now, the first thing we're going to be looking at is the denominators. Here we have a denominator of 6. Here we have a denominator of 3. Here we have a denominator of 4. We're now going to look into the times tables. We're going to choose the biggest denominator, which is 6. And we're going to look in the times tables. We're going to be looking in the 6 times tables. First, we're going to see if we can find a number that is in the 6 times table, the 3 times table, and the 4 times table. So let's go searching. The first number is 6. Is 6 in the 6 times table? Yes. Is it in the 3 times table? Yes. Is it in the 4 times table? No. So we can't use that. Next one is 12. Is 12 in the 6 times table? Yes. Is it in the 3 times table? Yes. Is it in the 4 times table? Yes. So we can use 12. Hence the reason why all of these are divided into 12 equal parts. Now let's see one way in which we can do it using a picture. So let's see. Now I've used a picture to represent it. So here we have 4, we take 3 out of the 4. Another 4, we took 3 out of the 4. Another 4, and we took 3 out of the 4. So 3/4 is the same thing as 3, 6, 9. 3/4 is the same thing as 9/12. Here we have 2/3 of every 3, I've taken out 2, of every 3, I've taken out 2, of every 3, I've taken out 2, and of every 3, I've taken out 2. So 2, 4, 6, 8. So 8 out of 12 is the same thing as 2/3. Here, 5, 6. So of every 6, I've taken out 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've taken out 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've taken out 5. So that is going to leave us with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 5 out of 6 is the same thing as 10 out of 12. 5 out of 6 is the same thing as 10 out of 12. Now we can compare them. We can use these new fractions because in this case, they're all out of 12. These are what we call equivalent fractions. So 3/4 is the same thing as 9/12. 2/3 is the same thing as 8/12. 5, 6 is the same thing as 11/12. Now we're able to compare them. Here we have equivalent fractions. We have 3/4 having this being the same thing as 9/12, 5, 6 being the same thing as 10/12, and 2/3 being the same thing as 8/12. Now going back to the situation of the bun. If here we have 2 buns of the same size, and one is cut up into 4 pieces and one is cut up into 12 pieces. If I take 3 out of 4 pieces and my cousin took 9 out of the 12 pieces, we will have the same size bun. We will have the same amount of bun. If here I took 5 out of 6 pieces of this cake that was cut up into 6, and my cousin took 10 of the one that was cut up into 12, we have the same amount. So there's no way we can go complaining about one getting more than the other. Or if it's a case where I've got 2 out of 3 pieces and my cousin took 8 out of 12 pieces, and I was to go home and complain to my grandma that, oh, my cousin told me that you gave her 8 pieces and I only took 2 pieces, so that's not fair. I can't believe you gave her more than me. Then my grandma would say to me, hang on there. I've cut yours up into 3 pieces and I've cut hers up into 12 pieces. I've given you 2 pieces out of the 3 pieces, and I've given her 8 pieces out of the 12 pieces. I've given you, both of you, the same thing. So there's no need for you to complain. Then all I would have to say to my grandma is, Grandma, I'm very sorry. Because there would be no bias. She would have given us the same amount. So here we have 3 fractions that have different denominators, and they're not unit fractions. We're asked to put these in order of size. This time we're not going to be using a diagram. We're going to be looking at the denominator, 6, 8, and 4. The biggest denominator there is 8. So we're going to be searching the 8 times table for a number that we can find in the 8 times table, the 6 times table, and the 4 times table. So let's search. The first number in the 8 times table is 8. 8 is in the 4 times table, but it's not in the 6 times table. The next number we can find is 16. 16 is in the 8 times table, it's in the 4 times table, but it's not in the 6 times table, so we can't use it. Next one is 24. 24 is in the 8 times table, it's in the 6 times table, and it's in the 4 times table, so we can use 24. So we're going to make our denominators 24. Now, we're going to find what our numerator is. Here we have 4 can go into 24, 6 times 3 is 18. So 3 out of 4 is the same thing as 18 out of 24. 8 into 24 is 3, 3, 2, 6. So 6 out of 24 is the same thing as 2 out of 8. 6 into 24 is 4, 4 5s, 20. So 20 out of 24 is the same thing as 5 out of 6. Now we can answer our question. Our question was to put these in order, smallest to largest. Now that we've made them all out of 24, we can use that to compare them. The smallest one is 6 out of 24, which is the same thing as 2 out of 8. So we have got to go back, and we're now going to write our answer as 2 out of 8. So the first one is smallest to largest, 2 out of 8. The next one is 18 out of 24, and 18 out of 24 is the same thing as 3 out of 4. So our next one that we have there is 3 out of 4. So our next one is going to be 3 out of 4. And our next one that we have is going to be the next one, which is 20 out of 24, and 20 out of 24 is 5 out of 6. So here we have our fractions in order. So in order to put these in order, smallest to biggest, then we've got to look at the denominators, 8, 6, and 4. We're looking at the biggest denominator, and we're going to use that as our checker. 8, so we search the 8 times table for a number that we see that's in the 8 times table, the 6 times table, and the 4 times table. We then use that as our denominator. Whatever we do to the bottom, 4 times 26 is 24, 3 times 6 is 18. 8 times 3 is 24, 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 4 is 24, 5 times 4 is 20. So we use that. So here we can now put them in order, smallest to largest. So in today's lesson, we looked at comparing fractions, and we compared first unit fractions. We said that unit fractions are fractions that has a numerator of 1. Unit fractions are fractions that has a numerator of 1. So a unit fraction (1 out of 8 is a unit fraction, 1 out of 9 is a unit fraction, 1 out of 10 is a unit fraction. And if we want to find out from a unit fraction which is bigger, we look at the denominator. The smaller the denominator, the bigger the fraction. If you notice, these pieces are from the bottom, they're bigger than the ones at the top. So the smaller the denominator, the bigger the fraction, but that only applies in a unit. We also looked at when they're non-unit fractions, and we look at using a picture to represent it. 3 out of 4, 2 out of 3, 5 out of 6. These are all different. There's nothing obvious in that are common. So first we look at the denominator. In this case, we're looking at the biggest denominator. In this case, it's going to be 6. We find a number that is in the 6 times table, the 3 times table, and the 4 times table. We find the first number we can meet on. The first number was 12, so we make all of them out of 12. We first use a picture of every 4 we shade 3, every 4 we shade 3, every 4 we shade 3, and that makes it 9 out of 12. In this one, of every 3 we shade 2, and that makes all of that becomes 8 out of 12. And this one, every 5 we shade 6, and that becomes 10 out of 12. We also look at what when we're not given a picture. We do the same thing. First, in this case, we're going to use the 8 times table. A number that is in the 8 times table, the 4 times table, and the 6 times table is 24. We do the same thing. What do I do to 6 to get to 24? Times by 4, so I times 5 by 4. 8 to 24 times by 3, so I times that by 3. 4 to 24 times by 6, so I times that by 6. Then I can use this to put these fractions in order. Hopefully, this helps you.
If you not have no education, people treat you like a book.